In this tutorial, I will teach you how to knit a rolled brim chunky hat for a left-handed person. The ingredients you'll need are 5 double-pointed needles size 9, one 16-inch long circular needle size 9. You can get this in bamboo or in this metal one. I like this, I think it's called Added Turbo needle because they knits really quickly and easily. And one darning needle with a big eye, which you'll use to weave in all the tails of your yarn. The yarn that's best for a size 9 needle is chunky yarn, and you'll see on the side of the label it will tell you what type of needle and what size of needle to use. My favorite brand of yarn is Lamb's Pride, and I'm going to be making a striped hat today. So first what I'm going to do is on one side of the circular needle, just start casting on stitches in the method that you like the best. So I'm going to cast on 72 stitches. So once you have 72 stitches, you're simply going to join the stitch you just cast on to the very first stitch you cast on. And the most important thing is to make sure that there is no twists in this ring. If the yarn is twisted around, it's not going to create a hat. It's going to come out all wonky. So just go along and make sure this seam right here is just on the inside of the entire work. So I have it twisted a little bit here. There we go. And all you're going to do is connect the stitches by knitting them. And this is kind of the hardest part, is the first row, is getting the first row knitted. So just knit that first stitch and then carry on to the next stitch. And this is the easiest way for me to knit a hat, mainly because you don't have to deal with stitching up any seams at the end of the pattern. When you're done, you're done. And all you're doing is knitting in a spiral around and around and around, and it creates that beautiful stockinette stitch instead of a garter stitch you're most likely used to knitting when you make scarves. So I'm just going to continue knitting around and around, and what it'll do is the edge is going to curl up a little bit, and that's going to make a little bit of a rolled brim. And you just keep knitting around until the work is about 6 to 7 inches tall. The 7 inches is going to allow for that curl up a little bit, and it'll be tall enough to start reducing or decreasing the stitches to make the hat. And during this first row, while you're knitting, just keep a watch on that inside seam, because it can be easily twisted around as you go. So just keep track as you go along that it stays along the inside and doesn't create any twists, and that'll prevent it from creating a twist in the hat. And I completely forgot about the stitch marker. I don't usually use stitch markers because I've made hats so frequently, so we'll put a stitch marker in place when we get back to the beginning of the row of the round. And the first row is just a little tight. It always is for me. So you're kind of home free once you get past this first row. Just like that. I kind of scrunch it along and push them up as I go. And I'm using size 9 needles today, and the only reason is that I can't find my size 10s. And you could do use size 9s or 10s with this type of yarn. The difference is that the size 10, the stitches are going to be a tiny bit looser, and with the size 9, the hat is going to be a little stiffer because those stitches are a little bit smaller, but the yarn is still pretty fat, which I don't mind either way. I just can't find my size 10s, so just keep going along like this, and we're getting there. See, I just kind of push the stitches up, and this is a good, you can see where it's starting to twist, so I just kind of check myself, check my work, make sure that it's all facing inward, because sometimes it can get confusing when you get back to the beginning. So just a few more stitches and we'll put that place marker in. So you're not going to really need the place marker for most of the project, but it's good to have one, so get used to using it. So I'm getting back to my first stitch here. Just a few more to go. And the stitch that you made to connect the last stitch to the first stitch is going to be a little loose, and that's okay. It'll tighten up when you keep knitting. So you can see how much space I have. It'll be all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this marker and I'm just going to put it on my left needle, So that way I'll know when I've come all the way around, because sometimes you'll lose place of it especially if your hat is all one color. So now I've just I've kept going and I'm on the second row, just like this. And I'll come back when we get all the way around. I'll show you what to do with that place marker when you get to it. So I'm approaching the beginning of the round again. And all you're going to do when you get to that stitch marker is just pick it up and pass it back to the left side of the work. So you can see I have a little bit of a snag there. I just take it out and re-knit it. Okay, so all we're going to do is take this, oop, it popped off. Take this stitch marker from the right needle and pass it back to the left needle, and then continue on to the next round. And since I'm doing a striped hat, I'm probably gonna make, I don't know, 3 inches of the green and then change it to a different color. I don't really plan these out in advance. But you do have to allow an inch or so for the edge of the hat to curl up. And to tell you the truth, I haven't made a hat with a rolled brim for several years, so I can't exactly remember what it takes, how much space it takes. So you'll just find out as you go along. And that's what I really like about knitting, is that it's pretty easy to change your plans if you need to. So I'll come back when I'm a few inches higher up on this hat. So as you can see, I've knit about 8 rows and the edge of the hat is starting to roll up. And the more I knit, the taller the hat's going to get, and it's gonna stop rolling right about there. So I think I'm going to knit probably another 6 rows or 5 rows until I start making stripes, and I'll meet you in part 2 for bringing in new color.